you go.
Hi, my name is Yue, and I'm here with Chloe, CJ, Melina, and Ali, and we are Team 4. Today, our team will be bringing together key insights from the entrepreneur interviews we've had the pleasure of participating in. Each of us will share our reflections on the entrepreneurs Justin, Gary, Jean, Isabel, and Katie, focusing on their mindsets and most important lessons we took away from their presentations.
Hi, I'm Melina. And starting off with Justin, I think his consistency was the biggest reason for his growth. Especially he posted every day for 100 days. It just really showed how much progress he made. He talks a lot about some mistakes that he made on the way, like not selling merch right away or getting brand deals earlier on. And he talks about how he learned from that and then what difference it could have made if he did start earlier on in his career. And then I also believe that his experiences show that having followers doesn't matter unless you have a clear plan set up in place. But overall, I really think he made a big impact and taught us a lot throughout his interview.
I'm Allie, and what I thought about Justin was that after failing, he didn't give up, and he kept fighting, even though he failed as a kid and then failed again trying whenever he got back on his feet. And he succeeded through that, so it just showed to not give up. He said, "Don't wait if you know what you want to do, start now," which is something that I've kind of still been wrestling with since his interview, so it obviously stuck with me. And then failing wasn't the worst that happened to him. It helped fix his mindset. It made him more eager. And it just showed, like, when he was talking about how much he failed, like in the beginning, it was crazy that his whole life kind of flipped upside down and he was able to just be so successful out of that. And it was just so inspiring to see that that you're gonna fail. Like, there's no promise that you're gonna do great, but you can get back up from it, which is something he showed.
Yeah, 100%. I'm CJ, and to kind of piggyback off of what Ali was saying with like the don't wait. He talked a lot about starting young, and he said start young, but then also don't give up, right? So he had the time during COVID when his channel was kind of struggling a little bit, and he didn't give up and he kept going. Another thing that stuck with me is definitely the hire fast and fire faster. It's something that it's funny because doesn't stick with you until it sticks with you because it didn't stick with me on the test. But yeah, so hire fast and fire faster because of the fact this is a younger generation and everything is so much quicker and whatnot. So hiring fast definitely makes sense, but firing even faster can sometimes be a little scary. And also being rooted in faith and constantly pursuing success. He was super rooted in his faith, as am I. So I really took to that and took advantage of it and hope to use that.
I also found Justin's change in mindset very interesting. So it was such a big success, and losing it all due to like outdated content and COVID would have been incredibly demotivating. However, instead of giving up, he recognized he was burnt out and chose to lean into what he already knew he was good at doing, which is like editing. So he was able to transform his mindset from chasing money, success, and fame to focusing on his audience and his well-being. And when he eventually returned to content creation with the help of others, in the industry, he was able to satisfy his audience and rebuild his brand. And this type of thinking reflected what Rich Dad Poor Dad mentioned, which is stop doing what isn't working and find a reason greater than reality, which helped boost his passion again.
Hi, I'm Chloe. The biggest thing I took away from his entrepreneur mindset is his determination. He had many setbacks, but he turned them into motivation.
Okay, so going on to Gary, he talks a lot about the importance of setting expectations for yourself. I feel like just setting expectations for yourself keeps you focused and motivated, and also keeping yourself accountable, so you know what you're working toward and you don't really feel overwhelmed. And then he really focuses on the liquid expectations visual. I just think this helped made like understanding what he was talking about a lot easier. Just like I could fully like understand the advice he was trying to give us. And then lastly, he talks about how companies are also competing on experience and not just similar products, which I think is a really good thing to know.
Yeah, and off of that, he also gave us the liquid expectations visual, like you said, with the perceptual, experiential, and direct competitors. And that was just a great visual for us to just see and kind of think about it whenever we're thinking about maybe making a business or just like even in any day life. Like that's just a great thing to see. And then he spoke about setting your own expectations and kind of like being confident in yourself and what you want to set for yourself. And I think that's really great, especially to be successful. I feel like you need to do that. And then failing fast. He just talked about how important it is that, like, again, you're going to fail, but just how you respond to it is so important. So, just hearing that, like, keep failing, but keep failing fast so that you can succeed is just something I never really thought of.
And something that definitely hit home with me for Gary, and this is probably my biggest takeaway, was he talked a lot about taking advantage of niches in the market. Golden Pear is definitely not something that you think of every day. It's not a company that comes to mind necessarily, but it was something that was needed because of a niche in the market. And that happens a lot in general. It's find the niche and then take advantage of that. Also, going off of that, all right, we had the liquid expectations visual, and I won't talk on it too much because Melina and Ali both did, but um, it's important to recognize that it doesn't, like, companies don't move between perceptual, experimental, excuse me, or direct competitors. And then also kind of driving home that setting your own expectations.
As the others have mentioned, I found his lesson on the liquid expectations very interesting, as most companies would just focus on creating a product, but not particularly on creating experience or perception associated with their brand to differentiate themselves. In his own business ventures with Golden Pear, he was able to identify the total addressable market and use knowledge he learned from his cousin's dental practice consulting business to help build connective tissue, update systems, and assess needs and set expectations, so that he was also able to build and strive towards an achievable goal. He also looked for employees who were looking to build a side hustle as he believed they had the right mindsets, which I found very smart.
Piggybacking off of what CJ said earlier with taking advantage of the niches in the market, I wanted to talk about his market separation because he wanted to show how his business could be different and how he could make himself stand out. With just starting with investments in startups, it really showed how you can start with something small and then build up into something way bigger.
Okay, so moving on to Gene, he talks a lot about how it's completely okay to sell your assets, and he says basically not to treat it like it's your baby. You're gonna have to give it up at some point. Then he also talks about how important it is to always have an exit strategy. It's good for a business to have an exit strategy because it gives a clear direction. It also protects the value of the company and then allows the owners to like be able to leave on their own terms instead of any other like under any type of pressure. And then he also talks about how important it is um as an entrepreneur to have habit like to set up habits for yourself to become successful. Um just like having like an exit strategy. So, yeah.
Yeah, and going off of the habits, you definitely have to have like a willingness to make the habits and make it happen. And he spoke on that too. So just talking about how a mindset should be whenever you're making your own business, especially coming from where he came from with nothing. And he also, near the end, I caught that he said that they called everyone and found one customer who was in an ISP service, which was crazy that they called everybody that they knew like around the place and only one person responded. And that just shows like be willing to put yourself out there and like call as many people as you can, make as many connections as you can because you're probably not going to get them all back, but as long as you have one, that's more than nothing. So that just kind of showed like his determination to keep the ball rolling and make something out of nothing, which was really cool.
And kind of to wrap all that up, right? It's the rags to riches story. That's what Gene was. He went from tanks in his backyard to talking to us on a Zoom in Florida with a consulting of a business that he had since sold. So, really fascinating to talk about that and how he went from the Soviet Union to now the United States, built his business and was able to sell it. Also to go off of what Ali was saying, like uh, cold calling when he first started the business, like that's not easy to do. Going around soliciting things like that, not easy to do. So that definitely tells us something about who he is and who he is as an entrepreneur, but also as a person and what his mindset is. Also, biggest thing, never 50-50, right? He talked about that, how he got screwed in a partnership because it was 50-50, and he worked for like 3 years to try to kind of get himself out of the situation to then have the company in a solo degree. And then also talking about solopreneurs, kind of what we talked about earlier, like not wanting to sell. Like don't be that person that wants to keep and not sell. Focus so much on success that you forget the other things. Rather be an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur and look for that kind of mindset.
Yeah, I also found his ability to create a business from nearly nothing to be very motivating. He used all his money he had on this dream, and he knew that he was able to find more success in entrepreneurship than in working the normal 9 to 5, reflecting how taking a big risk can be much more rewarding than not, and how not letting fear of being in a completely new country helped him succeed. Building a great relationship with your manufacturer and employees is also a very important lesson, and that trust and loyalty will all ultimately benefit your business. And as Melina mentioned, I also learned that having an exit plan can be very beneficial. It can help you get out of unnecessary problems and also allow you to have somewhat of a plan, as you tend to not know how long you'll be in business for.
The biggest thing that stuck with me about Gene is how he went from nothing to having $1 million business. And I think that's really something to admire as someone who wants to eventually start a business someday. And then also learning about his like business tips were to never go 50-50, which is something to definitely keep in mind. If I was going to have a future business partner. And then now he eventually sold his company, so I learned to like take some time for you and really like give it up when you need to.
Okay, so lastly, we have Isabel and Katie. I feel like I related to the most to them out of all the speakers just because they're really close in age to all of us. And then also my dad's a realtor, so I kind of like grew up around all that. But starting off, they really focused on personalized service. So they just made it a point getting close to all their clients, like taking them out to restaurants in their new neighborhoods or just giving them recommendations, whether it was like a hair salon nearby or just like other restaurants that they might enjoy because they're um starting somewhere new. And then the next thing was smart expansion. So they made it a point to get their license in Connecticut and then also expand into the suburbs of New York. And I feel like this just allowed them to grow and just have a lot more experience that will like really help them in the long run. And then lastly, they really focused on having a strong social media, just because it's so big, like just having a social media presence now. Um, and then they really made it a point to have like influencers that were also like close in our age, um, to kind of post like a day in the life of like looking at houses with them. So I feel like that could really just help their company. And yeah, I think they did a really good job in just explaining everything. So yeah.
Yeah, and along with their smart expansion that you were talking about, I also think like they did a great job diversifying. Like they didn't just do condos or apartments. They just like spread it all across the board, whatever they could find, which really I think brought a lot of people into their company looking for a place and just brought the trust as well because they were knowledgeable and they were also like I think they were very truthful and honest with their customers. So it helped like maybe this isn't for you, maybe you won't like this. Like they didn't hide anything, they were honest. And the importance of marketing, they showed that a ton, obviously, with like their social media, their marketing whenever they first started up with the booth outside of their building and their picture with the dog. Like they did a lot of stuff to attract customers, which is really important. And it's just little simple things that we can just learn off of. And along with that, they networked with agents in other states to build referral businesses. And that was just cool to hear. I mean, I haven't really heard, I mean, this was our first, what's it called? Realty service interview. So just hearing that they built referral business, that was pretty cool to just hear and connect with our lives.
Yeah, 100%. And they were entrepreneurs before they were entrepreneurs, right? So they work for that large company based out of New York before they got into the real estate industry themselves. And then they saw opportunity for a young demo, right? So they were able to go out and really target the young demographics through social media, but also just in general, and how relatable they were to not only their clients, but also us. And then work and life can be mixed. They taught us that work and life can be mixed through being able to go out and get coffee or going and being personable, and not having just that the working relationship, but having the work and social relationship mixed.
As what the others touched on, what stood out to me the most was their clear niche of helping recent college graduates find housing, whilst also shaping their business around building genuine friendship-like relationships with each client. They successfully created a strong network and built meaningful connections through social media, which allowed them to effectively promote both themselves and their services. And their mindset of delivering tailored personalized experiences for what is often a major and emotional life decisions, both thoughtful and strategic. This year clearly demonstrated how opportunity and knowledge can be leveraged for your success, as described in the book. In particular, when they were just starting out, they made smart use of the PSU resources to help jumpstart their careers and accelerate their growth.
The first thing that stuck out to me was saying how since they're younger and they're just kind of starting out, that they're going to start growing with their clients, which I think is a great thing when it comes to networking as they go to a bunch of housewarming parties with their clients. And I really took away from them is that networking is so important because networking brings in more clients, more people, more friends, and it's a whole circle.
Yeah, and just in closing here, some five key points that we were able to take away, not only from the speakers, but also from Rich Dad Poor Dad, and just kind of the first half of this class in general. Mindset drives long-term success, right? It's talked about a lot. This class is called Entrepreneurial Mindset. Consistency matters more than early results. So the long game is much more important than the short game. Failure is a learning tool, not an obstacle. Right. So we kind of touched on that, especially with our guys. They really touched on that, Gary and Gene, talking about learn how to fail, right? And then clear expectations and strategy are paramount to success. Lay it out before you go on the path, and then start early and adapt quickly, right? Start early. A lot of our entrepreneurs were talking about starting early and adapting. They all talked